What's going on, family? How y'all doing? Listen, I wanted to talk to y'all about something that I believe a lot of people deal with, and it is inordinate affections and demonic attractions. All right. Now, this is a subject that some of you might have heard of, some of you might not have heard of, but a lot of people deal with this, and it usually comes from a lack of intimacy, a lack of love, and deeply rooted emotional neglect, especially coming from childhood. And now, when you've dealt with emotional neglect, a deprivation of love, your needs were not met as a child, you were not given the proper love, it usually stimulates and creates an atmosphere for all of the wrong desires. Or I guess I want to say misplaced desires, if that makes sense. So we're going to break it down for y'all. Okay, so an inordinate affection, it's usually love distorted by a deprivation of love. So it's not actually love. So inordinate affection refers to an excessive, disordered, or obsessive emotional attachment to people or things, placing them above God so they become idols, leading to spiritual turmoil or sinful behavior. And it also leads to a loss of self-control as well. But the root cause of it is not a lack of self-control. Okay, we're going to talk about all of the different root causes of what this is. So it's an uncontrollable urge or passion that overwhelms reason, similar to lust or obsession. So what this means is that the lust or the urges or the misplaced passion, the inordinate affections that you have, they become so overwhelming that you no longer have the ability to reason. All right. So you might be in the heat of the moment and you know this is wrong, right? You know that you're desiring something, you're trying to chase or pursue something or someone that does not belong to you, which leads to the spirit of covetousness, which we're going to talk about pretty soon here as well. And it overwhelms your ability to reason. So it overwhelms your ability to have self-control in the moment. So you might be thinking, like, you might know in the back of your mind, hey, I know this is not right, but you're going to pursue that thing anyways because you want what you want in that moment. It becomes an obsession, okay? And it's very unhealthy. So it's a survival response that's usually born from rejection. It's born from loneliness and unmet attachment needs. So it's when our desire becomes so strong that we're willing to give up, compromise, or sacrifice for things that we know later on will destroy us. We also tend to make up excuses for bad behavior to explain it away. Or even worse, we end up covering it up. So all of this moves us further away from our families, further away from God, and deeper into an abyss of desire that's never going to actually be met because those desires only get stronger and stronger. The need for those desires becomes stronger and stronger. And so this is where, just like somebody who's addicted to crack cocaine, that addiction is going to become stronger, and they're going to continue to chase that original high that they first got when they first tried it. And that high is never going to be the same. They're going to be chasing a high that they're never going to get again, even under the point where they'll start stealing from their own family members, stealing from their own children, and they're going to chase that desire until it completely destroys their life. It's like this with anything. Okay, this is why you have to be grounded and rooted under the government of heaven. You have to be submitted to God. You have to be grounded and rooted in his word so that he can fill all of those emotional voids that are going to be stimulated and cause you to be urged or compelled to pursue something that you know is not healthy for you. So here's the thing about desire, okay? It's always en route, but it never arrives. So the thing about desire is that the more you want to be wanted, the more you want whatever it is you want, the more you are willing to change and give up and compromise for that thing. And this is where, our standards, our morals, and our integrity ends up being compromised. We end up devaluing ourselves. We end up snaking. We end up doing things. We end up hurting the people around us. This kind of desire is never satisfied. It's only delayed. And when your end game is something so elusive, desire ends up eating and consuming you. So it wins because it gets you to continue to make yourself lower with the promise that your value is actually increasing. And this is the trick of the devil. So it creates obsessive thoughts. So when you find yourself constantly thinking about a person or a thing to the point of distraction, it could be a sign of inordinate affection. Compromising your values or your integrity. If you're compromising your values or you're disobeying God's commandments to pursue these desires, it's a clear indication. Neglecting responsibilities. So when your responsibilities, whether personal, whether family responsibilities, spiritual responsibilities, when all these things begin to take a back seat to your desires, it's time to reassess your situation. Emotional turmoil. Inordinate affections, they often lead to emotional instability, anxiety, jealousy. And watch this. If these inordinate affections begin to lead to jealousy and envy, that's going to lead to activating the spirit of covetousness, where you're going to do things to try to take someone's wife, do things to try to take someone's husband. All right, you're gonna do things to the extreme. This is what actually puts people into witchcraft. So understand that inordinate affections and demonic attractions, they push people into witchcraft. So when you've been emotionally starved, the heart doesn't reach. It clings to certain things as your wounds cling to the things to soothe the wounds. All right? It clings to certain things as your wounds cling to things to soothe the wounds. So even though it's toxic, the desire for that thing still grows stronger and stronger, and it starts to manipulate your behaviors. So it attaches with an intensity that feels right. It feels like fate, or it feels irresistible, but the bond is feeling a wound. It's not feeling something that you actually want. So certain things that you want or desire, and I've told y'all this before, you have to ask yourself, are these things that are actual wants or desires? Are these things that I actually like? Or are they wounds that have stimulated wants and desires that are not actually mine? Come on here, somebody. It can end up looking like an excessive, dysfunctional, or misplaced passion for something. This is why people become really interested in all of these weird things. Have you ever met one of those people and they just have obsessions, weird obsessions with really strange things? People having weird fetishes with really strange things. It's a misdirected passion. It can be an unhealthy attachment to worldly things like wealth, pleasure, status instead of God. Inordinate affections manifest through unhealthy and obsessive attachments through what feels like uncontrollable love. People who deal with deep-seated wounds of rejection, that have an unusual desire for materialistic things. They have an unusual desire for perverted affection. This looks like the type of person who likes whoredoms, who likes orgies, who likes having multiple people, okay? So they end up having perversion in how they interact. They're overly flirtatious. They're really promiscuous. They obsess over other people's husbands and other people's wives, and they're willing to go to the extreme to do anything that they can to destroy somebody's marriage, to grab somebody else's wife or husband. These are people that have inordinate affections. These are people who have demonic attractions, and these are people who because these evil desires have grown so strong, they end up becoming full-blown witches and warlocks. All right, having an unusual desire or affection for something that does not belong to you, and you want it. You know it's wrong. You know it doesn't belong to you. You know that you might have to ruin some lives to get it, but you want it, so you got to have it. This is where the spirit of covetousness comes in, which is the desire or inordinate affection for something or someone that does not belong to you. You see this in the church all the time. You end up having an uncontrolled craving for sensual things or sexual gratification. You end up having a distorted love or lust. You love all the wrong things. You love things or people in the wrong way. Like someone who's supposed to be your spiritual sister, you want to fornicate with her, okay? You love things to the wrong degree. So what this does is it also leads to the fantasy lust I was talking to you guys about, because your heart becomes consumed with desires and fantasies that seem magical. They seem intoxicating. They seem captivating. Things that seem like fairy tales to you. And you'll go to the extent of doing witchcraft, love spells, doing divination. You'll seek out witch doctors to get whatever or whoever it is that you're trying to get. And ultimately, it's very unsafe, it's unhealthy, it's unstable, and it makes you manipulative. It turns you into a witch. Because instead of being in alignment with God and his purpose and allowing him to attach things to your life according to that purpose, you start using tactics to manipulate people in situations no matter what the cost, because you want what you want and you just got to have it. So, demonic attractions. When it comes to things like demonic attractions, all right, you're not drawn to the actual person. Like, let's say you desire a certain type of person. This is where you have to identify where your attractions come from. When I've talked to you guys previously about people who are in toxic relationships and they have a certain type or a certain preference, you have to ask yourself where that type or preference comes from. Because a lot of times, you're not drawn to the person. You're drawn to the familiar pain that the person represents. Hello, somebody. So this can look like, for example, being pulled toward emotionally unavailable people because your parents were emotionally unavailable growing up, craving someone who triggers your abandonment wounds, feeling chemistry with someone who replicates childhood dynamics, mistaking intensity for true love and connection, mistaking chaos in relationships for true love and intimacy. because you think if it's intense, if it's chaotic, that means the person loves me. Because your nervous system has been conditioned for a type of love like this. So you have to identify with the types of people you are attracted to, with the types of relationships that you notice that you are drawn to. Is that actually an attraction, a desire, or is that actually something that you want? Or is this coming from something that replicates your childhood pain? Or is this something that replicates the familiarity of the people that have abused you in the past? So even though you know it's toxic, you feel like you can't live without that type of toxic relationship dynamic. This also becomes where you start to see a man of God and you start to be infatuated with the image of who he is in your mind, but not the actual person. Because let's say, for example, you don't even know that man of God, right? You don't even know him, but his image, his status, you love it. You're infatuated by it. And now you start to create a fantasy of a world with that man in your mind. You start to have an imagination of building a life around who that man of God is or what his image is, but you don't even know who he actually is. So you'll start to try to manifest and obsess over him or her. You'll start to send prayers, okay, to familiar spirits. You're going to start to send strange fire prayers. Now, all of your desires are shaped and molded by this inordinate affection, by the demonic attractions, which are shaped by your rejection and your deprivation of healthy love. This is how demons attach to someone's life, and they start to do witchcraft. They start now trying to manipulate situations to get around a certain person or a certain man. They're going to start manifesting all the wrong things in all the wrong ways. This is where you get so desperate for love. You start burning sage, putting crystals on an altar with people's pictures, and you start praying that God would bless you with that person. Right now, your prayer life is shaped by demonic attractions. So you send strange fire prayers against a person that's designed to draw them with the spirit of lust. So when you send strange fire prayers, it's like you're launching curses or you're launching spells on that person to try to create a drawing. It's like it's a way of trying to create a summoning, hoping that that man of God will start to lust after you and you'll be able to draw him to you. And then it'll also be designed to not only draw him to you, but you're also destroying and sabotaging his destiny because it's going to cause him to compromise if you're able to be successful. It's designed to try and create the wrong desires, even in other people that would be seduced into giving you access. Rejection leads you to doing weird things to see if it'll work on people. You'll feel rejected by the church, and now you're offended, so you start building altars. You start doing incantations to see if the witchcraft will work against the leaders. You'll start doing divination, soothsaying, consulting familiar spirits, doing love spells like writing that man's name in a journal because you're trying to summon him. And then when they reject you, you'll start to say, okay, forget him, then I'm going to lie on him, and I'm going to create a scandal around his name because I'm going to destroy his reputation because if I can't have him, can't nobody have him. For a lot of people, lust, fornication, the demonic attractions, and the things that you're willing to do to get what you want, it's not just a lust and a perversion problem, okay? So the lust, the perversion, the masturbation, demonic attractions usually stimulate in a person because of high stress, loneliness, emotional neglect, being deprived of love, boredom, rejection, frustration with life, disappointment, exhaustion, betrayal. So watch this. Every time you feel rejected, every time you feel lonely with zero emotional or relational connection, disappointed with life, to cope with that or temporarily relieve yourself, you indulge in those inordinate affections. You indulge in lust. You indulge in fornication. You indulge in masturbation. So before people are able to process and properly deal with these things, your body is going to learn whatever natural reaction it had to comfort itself in that moment. And this is how a lot of these desires become stimulated and grow over a period of time. And now it begins to demonically possess people, and it starts to condition their instinctual behavior types. So a lot of times we don't have the language to heal from these things and don't know where to go to seek safe connection with people. So even though deep down inside we want intimacy but feel like we can't get it, so as a result we need something to substitute for that. And that stimulates all of these lustful desires within people. This is how demonic possession happens, and you become addicted to self-soothing. And the deeper you fall into lust and self-soothing, the more strange and different it is when God actually wants you to regulate with a healthy person or with him. When he wants you to go seek help with something, it's going to feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable to you now because you're used to dealing with it in this way. So understand that when you've been at your most lustful moments, identify if those were times where you felt you had no connection, no intimacy with people, maybe no intimacy with God. You felt like God himself didn't love you, or you feel like you had no support from anybody. Do you feel like you've been seen or appreciated by people just for who you are? Do you feel like people see you and love you without performance? Do you feel like people love you without people pleasing? Do you feel like there are people who love you unconditionally? If not, and if your needs were ignored, you were deprived of that love. It took a hit on your soul, and now those feelings would start to manifest physically. Now your body is going to find that way to soothe itself. So this is where all of these demonic affections and these strange behaviors stem back from. This is why people become narcissistic. This is why people become so obsessed. They start writing people's names in journals. They start doing all of this weird and crazy stuff just to get people. It creates an obsession and a desperation. Somebody say, I am not desperate for a man or a woman. I am not desperate for love. Come on here, somebody. You got to start to deal with these things. Now, what this also does, because you now feel disgusting. You now feel devalued because after masturbation, after fornication with different people, it activates a spirit of shame in your life, which is going to cause you to try to hide and cover things up. So what the shame does is now tries to push you into isolation because you feel embarrassed. You feel too ashamed to be around people knowing what you're doing behind closed doors. So you feel like, it's a lack of self-control or discipline, but it's actually less about self-control, and it's more about being deprived of something that's normal for human beings to desire. So we were made for safe and unconditional connection. Understand that. We were made for intimacy without judgment. So when someone doesn't have that, the emotional starvation grows and grows as a result. So a lot of people, they're trying to bind up spirits of lust. They're trying to bind up and rebuke spirits of perversion, which I still believe is necessary. But really what you need is not just deliverance from the spirit of lust, but you need healing from the emotional neglect. You need healing from rejection. You need healing from loneliness. You need to be spiritually filled with love, with the purposes of God. You need safe and healthy connection. You need emotional support. Amen. So it's not just a lack of willpower, but you have to deal with the root of what's stimulating all of these things. So you've been replacing all of these things that you've been deprived of with these coping mechanisms, with these substitutes, with the vices, and really it needs to be filled with the love of God and a safe community of people, and also with purpose. Because if that void remains empty, those habits and those demonic attractions, they might only grow stronger and stronger. So what I want y'all to do, when you feel the lust and the perversion arising, when you feel yourself seeking for things, desiring things that you know are not godly, pay attention to that. Pay attention to where you're at mentally and emotionally when these things are happening, and first take them into the presence of God or reach out to somebody. So understand that if you're not honest and you continue to hide and isolate, the shame thrives in the dark. It wants to keep you in the dark. So these emotional voids, they stimulate the lust stimulates the shame pushes you into isolation, and the isolation grows the lust even stronger, and now it's just creating a self-reinforcing feedback loop that keeps you in these patterns. You're dealing with all of these misplaced desires. So when you feel these things rising up, pay attention to that. Pay attention to when you feel the urges, when you feel the desires rising up, and identify where you're at mentally and emotionally. Identify the emotions, identify the things that you feel or the things that are happening in your life, the things that you're being triggered by when these things are starting to be stimulated, and take them into the presence of God and ask for wisdom on how to deal with these things. Reach out to somebody that you know you can trust. Because if you don't learn how to process these things, not only are they're going to stimulate all the wrong desires and lust within you, but those lusts will cause you to jeopardize and to sabotage your destiny or get you into the wrong types of situations. You're going to open up the door to the wrong things, and it'll lead to your own self-destruction. I love y'all. God bless. I hope this video could help you. Come on, let's get it.